What's up, everybody? This is Nate with Doctors of Running, and today I wanted to do a comparison review between two ASICS shoes. One of them is the new Megablast from ASICS, and then the other one is the Superblast 2 from ASICS. The reason why I wanted to talk about these two is they're two models within the new Blast lineup that are most similar to one another, and talking about my experiences regarding whether they are differentiated enough and what the differences are between these two shoes. So when we talked with the ASICS team, one of the things that they told us was that they did a whole round of testing where they put this midsole into the shaping of the Superblast, and the feedback that they got from their testers was basically, this doesn't feel like a Superblast to me. So that was their light bulb to say, hey, you know what, maybe this is the fourth shoe within our line. So I do want to dig into the specs first, talking about the differences there, but then I want to go into a more experiential and kind of the questions that I still have about these shoes and what's going to be coming in the ASICS lineup to come. So just to run through these, in terms of pricing, the Superblast is at $200, where the Megablast is a little bit even more premium, which is at $225. Before even going further, if you've listened to the podcast, you know that I am a bit of a stickler when it comes to not wanting to pay $200 for a trainer. I've even really had a hard time thinking about paying $180 for a trainer. And what's been really interesting for me is one of the shoes that has actually felt there value-wise has been the Superblast and the Superblast 2. I have gotten a lot of different uses out of this shoe, and the versatility is so high that I have felt like I could take this shoe, and I have, on tons of different kinds of runs, from easy runs and recovery short runs to really long runs to workouts to taking this for a half marathon race. So for me, one of the questions is the value here at $225 for the Megablast? And I'm going to save that question for later and let it kind of linger. But you are paying $25 extra for this shoe. When it comes to weight, you do have a difference in weight between these two shoes. The Superblast 2 is a little bit heavier at 8.7 ounces into my men's size 9, and that's 249 grams. And then you have 7.9 ounces or 229 grams in the Megablast. So you have a bit lighter, about 0.8 ounces lighter, and that's my measured weight for these shoes. That's not the listed weight. That's what I got for my measurement. So you definitely get lighter in the Megablast, and it feels lighter on foot, especially when you're trying to pick up the pace and turn over a little bit more. But then you look at stack and you look at drop, and those are exactly the same, and they're listed from ASICS. You're looking at 45 millimeters in the heel, 37 in the forefoot. That gives you an 8 millimeter drop in both situations. I would say that they feel like an 8 millimeter drop. They don't feel remarkably lower or higher. There's a little bit more compliancy in the foam here in the Megablast, so you kind of sink in a little bit more, but with the rocker, you're able to get up nice and easy. So it feels kind of like that mid-range drop, anywhere from 6 to 8 millimeters, I'd say, is where both of them fit from a feeling regarding the drop. Then we look at what the midsole actually is. And I think this, from an experiential standpoint, is what makes the shoes feel so different. So in the Superblast 2, you have the Flightphone Turbo Plus on this top sole. Then you have this very small but important bottom sole here, which is made up of the Flightfoam Max Plus. And so you have a little bit of a firmer foam on the bottom, and we'll talk about how that experientially makes the shoe feel quite different than this, which is full length. The entire thing is their new compound, the Flightfoam Turbo Squared. So you have different midsole compounds. So let's just talk about the ride, because I think that it's the foam that really creates the ride experience. And when I think of the Megablast, it has been extremely poppy and responsive and bouncy. Like the foam really, you load it and then it really feels like it's bouncing back with you. You have a moderate rocker here. It's not like pitching you forward, but you're rolling really quickly onto it, and the heel and the forefoot cushioning is really responsive. I've always felt like the Superblast was responsive, but when I even before even making this video, I just wanted to double check myself, and I put one on each foot, and I went for a very short run. I don't run long runs, two different shoes on my feet. But when I put them on, there's just a remarkably different level of bounce from the Megablast. It feels a bit more controlled pop from the Superblast. And part of that is because you do have this bottom layer that's a little bit firmer. You also have a little bit more stiffness and kind of rigidity torsionally as well. So you have a much more stable platform, and that stable platform really creates this controlled ride in the Superblast in comparison to something that's a little bit more wild, where it's very poppy, much more, I would say much more unstable. I say that the Superblast is a stable neutral shoe. It's got a wide base. It has this, full length dual density midsole that adds some rigidity. And you also have more sidewalls. You've got a lot going on to create a stable neutral platform here in the Superblast 2. Whereas in this one, you don't have that as much. The sidewalls are not as aggressive. There is no second dual density midsole. So you have a lot more opportunity for the foot to wobble on this more compliant surface. So if you're somebody who's loving stability and needing at least a little bit, you're going to have to veer between these two shoes. At least you're going to have to veer towards the Superblast in comparison to something that's definitely just a true high stacked neutral trainer. That's what you're going to get in the Megablast. I think the other parts that are different comes in the fit of these shoes. The upper in the Superblast 2 is much more trainer-like. It's more of a mesh type material. It's got a little bit of an accommodation to the stretch of the material, and just the general fit is more volume, particularly in the forefoot. And then you get a little bit more padding throughout the tongue and from the heel. In the Megablast, you have a much thinner upper, and it's much more, it feels like a race-ready shoe, and race-ready upper, I should say. And you have basically very minimal to no padding in the tongue. You have less padding around the heel. And again, a very synthetic, very rigid, not a lot of stretch. And then that just leads to a lower volume forefoot. And I would even say the taper here makes it feel a little bit short in comparison to the Superblast. I wouldn't for myself size up in the Megablast, but if you're someone who's always on the edge between those two, half size up might be something worth considering with the Megablast, just because there is not a lot of accommodation and it's a little bit lower of a volume. So last thing I'll say comparison wise, and then we'll move forward to the more interesting stuff. You have outsoles on both of these. Both of them are ASICS grip. I have not had any issues with either of them. The Megablast grip has been ridiculous. It's been squeaky on the boardwalks that I've gone on. Very grippy here, and I haven't had any grip issues here. My first big question with these shoes that people have been asking, that I've been asking myself, is there differentiation enough between these two models? And for me, right now, I think yes. I think that this shoe gives a much more lively experience. Even though the Superblast is lively and versatile, this is lively in a way that it feels like I could go take this out for a true half marathon race for me. Again, my marathon time is like 3:30. My half marathon is just under an hour and a half. This would be a shoe that would, I think, work fantastic for that. When I've raced in the Superblast 2, it's been for more easy efforts. Like I did a half marathon where I ran like an hour 45. That was more appropriate than pushing the effort even a little bit harder. Or if I was needing something more stable for a long race, I would go verging towards the Superblast. But the Megablast is just this other level of performance that I think comes in this shoe. And that, for me, differentiates it enough, both from a performance standpoint and then from the stability standpoint, where if you need something stable, you're going to go towards the more stable option. But in that differentiation question, I think we will really understand this whole family of shoes when they come out with the Superblast 3. I don't know anything really about that shoe coming in the spring. They've told us a few things about it, but philosophically what they have said is now that we know the four shoes, we can appropriately differentiate them. So to me, that begs the question, should we be worried for those of us who love the Superblast and what it is? What are they going to do to it to complete the line and make sure that it fits the space they want? Does it mean they're going to make it even less versatile and a little bit more high stack trainer? I have not heard that anywhere. In fact, the things that I've heard make it seem like it's still going to hopefully maintain some of that versatility and pop as a trainer. My other hope is that they maintain the kind of stable neutral elements that make this shoe a little bit more accessible to people who have some level of stability need. So I think the better comparison will come on the day when we have Superblast 3, and now you have all four of these shoes when they've been created with the other ones in mind. The other question that I have that is not fully tested, and we'll keep reporting on this, is durability, because the durability of the Superblast has been proven. You know, this is a shoe that Matt has taken over 200 miles. It's a shoe that I have a ton of miles on. A lot of people have reported the durability of both the foam, but then the outsole hasn't been giving out. So you really, going back to value, get your money's worth out of the durability with the Superblast. I think we are still like sight to be seen whether the durability of this new midsole tuned to training, right? This Flight Phone Turbo Squared is an ATPU that's more training tuned. Is it going to last? Is that pop that I'm feeling now after probably like 40, 50 miles, is that going to stick into the 200, 300, 400, 500 mile range? Our team's going to keep getting miles on this and hopefully keep reporting back. And the best testers are going to be everyone who's just buying this shoe and getting tons of miles. Is this foam going to last? I think that is another huge question that I have going on. So that's the main differences between these shoes in terms of my experiences. If I'm going out for a race, I'd be verging and I'm looking for a racer, but I'm not wanting a super shoe. I'm leaning towards the Megablast. Can still get some training in on it, but really I'm going to save it for those like harder, longer efforts or true races. Whereas the Superblast, I feel like I could use it for an everyday trainer. So you've got two shoes that on paper have some similar specs, but run experience-wise, I have felt a difference between the two, and I'm excited to see what they end up doing with the updated Superblast 3 to really complete the family of the Blasts.